to the House. Buck McKeon, he is chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. His committee begins hearings on Syria Tuesday. Tennessee Republican Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, she, like other conservative members, is opposed to intervention, which puts them in alliance with the Congressional Progressive Caucus. One of their members, Massachusetts Democrat Jim McKeon, is here as well. Thank you all for joining us. I want to first talk about some of the things that Dennis had to say. And first to you, Congressman McKeon, have you seen any intelligence that directly links Assad to this chemical weapons strike, and do you need it?
I've seen what they've shown us, and they have evidence showing the regime has probably the responsibility for the attacks. They haven't linked it directly to Assad, in my estimation. So
it's probably good enough, because it was probably that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and he didn't. So it's probably good enough in this case?
Well, Assad used them almost a year ago, and we didn't get involved then. Probably should have done something sooner. It's a little late, and I'm not sure. You know, 100,000 people have been killed, about 1,400 by chemical weapons, or a few more. It's a tragedy all the way around. It's immoral to be using chemical weapons, obviously, against your own people. By the same token, I'm concerned about the morality of sending our troops into harm's way without providing for the things they need. You know, the president, in the last couple of years, has done the surge in Afghanistan while cutting the military budget, flew missions over Libya while cutting the military budget, changed to a Pacific strategy while cutting the military budget, and now this. We're asking them to do more with less. I think there's a moral responsibility that we have to our troops.
And I want to follow up on that in a bit, but I want to get each of you just to chime in here in our first part about what the Chief of Staff had to say. You had said, I just don't know what the mission is here. Your inclination is to vote no. And we heard Dennis McDonough say, look, here's the mission. We are going to degrade Assad's ability to use chemical weapons and deter him from doing so. That's our mission. Is that good enough?
That is not good enough for me, because every mission should be clearly defined, and then you need the execution of what that strategy is going to be, and then you need to know what that exit strategy is going to be. And I don't see that. And as the chairman said, repeatedly, this president is saying do more with less, even to the point that the day before he starts saying, let's go to Syria, he cuts their pay, and they're going to get less than they were expecting. I think that part of the crisis is what is being done to the funding of our military.
And again, I do want to talk about the funding of the military, but I want to ask you, because I know that you intend to vote no at this point on a resolution. Can you look your commander-in-chief, the leader of the Western world, who has come to Congress and said, we need to do this, we have an obligation to do this, and tell him no?
Well, look, I'm a big supporter of President Obama's. I have great admiration for him. I support him on almost everything. But sometimes friends can disagree. But
this is a big one.
This is a big one, but the point of the matter is this is not a question about party loyalty. This is a question for all of us about what is right. This is a vote of conscience. Is this the most effective thing to do? And I'll just be honest with you. I'm troubled, and this is not just with the administration, but by the international community and the international organizations, that there's this lack of imagination, the inability to think out of the box about what are the alternatives here. We're being told that there's two choices: do nothing or bomb Syria. Clearly, there have to be some other choices in between. We ought to explore them.
Let me ask you, all three of the military, I've got about a minute, so has anybody seen any evidence that somehow the U.S., whatever U.S. servicemen are involved, whatever equipment is involved, will not be funded properly for this particular mission? I mean, there's no evidence of that. I understand that in general you have a concern about the military budget.
All I've heard is that something as important as this, they'll find the money for it.
Sure.
But it has to come from somewhere else. The money's fungible. Right. If they're not going to have enough money for the training and equipping of our
And the
our
readiness,
people.
redeployment
But so
readiness.
is it an argument against it to say, well, we don't have the money for it because clearly they'll find the
The
money?
reality is we'll do, if we decide to go to war in Syria, we'll do in Syria what we've done in Afghanistan and Iraq, and let's borrow the money. We all talk about the debt that we have. Well, a big chunk of the debt is these war costs.
I'm going to ask you, three of you to stand by. We'll be right back. And when we return, saying no to the president and what it means for the United States position in the world. That's up next.